Hi all. These are generally conversations between adults after the children have left the table. The language can be spicy and the subjects can get saucy. So if you're ready, this is the Southern Fork. Unscripted kitchen chats and also studio chats with some of the most interesting voices in the culinary South. I'm Stephanie Burt, a food and beverage writer who travels with her fork to write for a variety of publications, from magazines you might have on your coffee table to the website you love to visit for your favorite recipes. And I'm inviting you to come behind the scenes with me to get to know the people who make this Southern culinary landscape so special. I'm always hungry for the next bite, thirsty for that next sip, and ready for the next conversation. Let's dig in. The Southern Fork is proud to say that once again, the presenting sponsor for Season 8 is Townsend Automotive in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. First off, thanks to so many of you listeners out there who not only decided to purchase a vehicle from this family-owned business in the last 2 years, but also shared with them that it was directly because of their support of this show. That's what community, even in our virtual format, is all about. Second, Townsend Automotive, celebrating 49 years serving West Alabama, has been extending its reach so that you don't even have to be in the Tuscaloosa area to purchase a car from them. Nationwide vehicle delivery service is available for Southern Fork listeners, and it's something that makes buying just the right new or certified pre-owned vehicle even easier. Visit townsendhonda.com for current inventory. Or, of course, if you're in West Alabama, stop in. Townsend Automotive always salutes local entrepreneurs, from restaurateurs to podcasters, and they welcome you to be part of a community that does the same. What is Southern food? And how does that differ from asking the question, what is cooking in the South? Those are just the sort of things I try to answer through each episode of the Southern Fork. So it's fitting to begin this, our 8th season together, in a conversation with Chris Hathcock, better known as Chino, of Husk Savannah in Savannah, Georgia. He's been working to define his style for 4 years, while under a mantle of an iconic Southern restaurant brand, interpreting Southern ingredients through his own personal lens, all while keeping a focus on sourcing locally. That's what cooking in the South means to him, and he's built that point of view through working in some of the best kitchens in the region, including Empire State South and Staplehouse in Atlanta, and Two Boroughs Larder in Charleston. Chino was recognized in 2016 as a Forbes 30 Under 30 recipient and was named a semifinalist for 2014 and 2015 Eater Young Gun. But as he has grown creatively, he's still fascinated with the process of cooking and interested as to where it's going to lead him next. Welcome to the Southern Fork, Chris.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for feeding me until I about passed out last night. Everything was so delicious, and it was long overdue to come eat your food. How long have you been at Husk Savannah? It's been a few years now.
Yeah, it's been right at 4 years. I didn't open it, but I came on about 6 months after they opened. I was originally in Greenville.
Right.
And then when Sean left the company, the president of the company approached me about coming down to Savannah to help out. So I've been doing that for just over 4 years.
And you're a Georgia person.
Yeah, I was born in Atlanta, kind of grew up in Savannah, graduated UGA, and just Georgia boy.
Well, what is so great is I've been around way longer than I want to admit in the Southern food scene and covering it, and of course was around before Husk started, and it
it was a cultural totem in a lot of ways for Southern restaurants. And then when Sean left the group and Greenville closed, then there was this moment of maybe this isn't going to be like, we thought this might be 5 chains across the South, 5 different restaurants. And you came here to Savannah and you steadied the ship first. And then you started making your own path. I take the idea of Husk to be central to sourcing. Is that how you see the Husk name centering in your work?
Absolutely. So something I like to clarify with a lot of folks is that we're not a Southern restaurant. We're a restaurant in the South, but, we use Southern ingredients. It says so on our lettering and everything else says Southern ingredients. It doesn't say Southern restaurant. So it's important for me to get the best possible ingredients for as close to our doorstep, but then using them to manipulate and make whatever food we're inspired by at the moment. So what we're doing is tons of Japanese technique, but using stuff from the South to make those flavors happen.
Mm-hmm. And since you've lived here, this is a Southern ingredient show. It isn't a Southern cuisine show. My ingredients are the people cooking in the South. It's not all cornbread and collards here at the Southern Fork, so I completely understand what you mean. And my favorite kind of restaurants are the restaurants just like yours that use local ingredients and then interpret it however. You've had a life with ingredients in this region, Savannah, growing up here. What were the things that you were really excited about putting on the menu when you started doing that? And then what are some of the ingredients, because I'd love to start there, that you're really excited about that are new to you?
Well, coming back to the Low Country was exciting for me because of all the amazing seafood. Georgia shrimp season just ended, but tilefish season just opened. So just having lots of access to hook and line caught sustainable fish with the seasons. And then, we're getting stone crab claws from the Wilmington River, which is 20 minutes away.
Wow. I didn't know that they were harvesting stone crab there.
Yeah, we got some as recently as a week ago. So just, all the amazing sustainable seafood we get, but then we have, a lot of growers in South Carolina and then some folks up in North Carolina that we're getting some produce from. So we have kind of the best of both worlds. We have the Low Country vegetables, but also kind of Appalachian vegetables as well.
I would like to anchor the example of this in the squash dish last night. Let's talk a little bit about that, because I think that's a very you dish, right?
Sure, yeah.
And that was a Tom Sum?
Yeah, so it's a Southeast Asian vegetable salad. Thai is called som tom, and then in Lao, which is, my heritage, is a tom som. And what it means is pounded sour. So what you do is, typically it's made with green papaya, and it's beat with a mortar and pestle to kind of break up the cell walls and allow the dressing to coat it a little better. And then, the sour comes from tamarind. So tamarind, and then we use a lot of fermented seafood that we make in the restaurant. So our version has, an oyster amino, which takes, a few months to make, and then house-made fish sauce and fermented shrimp. So those 3 items go into this salad that's typically a Southeast Asian dish, but we're using all Southeast local ingredients.
That was maybe my favorite dish of the night. I loved it because it was surprising. It was filling. I looked at it and thought, this is going to be very light. Of course, I've had a papaya salad before. I kind of knew what I was getting into, but it was so satisfying. Yeah. And it was a wonderful palate cleanser. Sold as a salad. Do you feel like you have to do a lot of education here in Savannah about your aesthetic? Or do you just put it on the plate and let the food speak for itself?
A little bit of both. When I first came onto Husk, I feel like I was cooking for the clientele and not for myself. Just, we had a lot of folks who just want meat and potatoes, and they want their shrimp and grits, and they want this Southern food, but slowly we started to introduce more. And now I think that there's enough following within the food scene here and destination diners and everything that we kind of do whatever we want. And we do tell that we explain it to the guests and, provide that experience. But, it's really kind of just whatever we feel like doing. And
that's a sweet spot.
Yeah, it's great. And, we have great servers who are that liaison between our chef team and the guests. So they can tell them about why the dish is on the menu, what inspired it, kind of who created it, all of that.
All of that takes a lot of patience. I talk to a lot of chefs, and there's this dance that you have to do between what the market will allow, but also what you as a creative person are pushing, right? And you're telling me this idea of adding in stuff in small doses as you moved the menu to a space that was a lot more you. Do you consider yourself a patient person, a patient chef? Would your staff say that?
I would say, it's funny. I'm not really patient with a lot of things like waiting in line or, going to a government building or anything, but I feel like I have a lot of patience in the kitchen with, staff and a lot of patience for things when they're not right and using it as kind of teachable moments rather than having a hot head and, so I'm patient in my professional life, but maybe impatient in my personal time because it's so limited.
Also, a lot of the things that you're doing here in-house, they take patience. Fermenting shrimp, making your own fish sauce, curing your own meats. Do you find yourself pulled as a chef to more of the expo? Like I saw you last night. Where is your spot that you love?
At the core of it, I'm a cook. I miss cooking, but, I go where the restaurant needs and demands. So a lot of my days are involved with butchering and fermenting and making pasta. And then during service, it's expediting. So I'm not on the line so much anymore, but it's mostly passion projects and menu development with the sous chef team.
Mm-hmm. You have a passion project right now you can tell us about?
We really always have a rotating door of different misos and amino sauces. So we make our own fish sauces and garums and shoyus. We get all this amazing koji rice from right outside of Nashville from proper sake. And it's this inoculated rice that we use in all of our fermentation.
That's such a cool place. I haven't quite gotten there yet in the Southern Fork, but it's on the list. Those are very particular. And as somebody who, I flushed Mildred down the disposal. She was my sourdough starter. So a lot of us that are home cooks, we can't really conceptualize that. We've lost that space, and we used to build pantries, right? And there's the homesteading movement, and you see people doing that a lot more now, preserving lemons, or a lot of people make limoncello at home. A generation ago, that wouldn't have been happening. What keeps you coming back to cooking? Is it the same thing that you got into? Can you talk to us a little bit about your attraction to it? Because you're lifelong and you've had time, especially during a pandemic, to really think about staying in a business like this.
Sure. There's, different reasons I've started cooking, continue to cook. I cooked through college to put myself through UGA and to have fun. And, it's always kind of like the second closest thing to being a rock star, back then. But what really, when I cook, I really enjoy service and, that aspect of it. But I think it's the only things I can think of that engages all of your senses to do entirely. So you're listening to the food, you're watching it. Obviously you're tasting it, but you're smelling it. It engages you wholly. And if you're not fully present, then you're going to screw things up,
Absolutely. Yes, I do know.
So it's super important to me to just engage all my senses when I'm doing it. And just, you feel like a piece of fish, the skin getting crispy and the water cooking out of it. And you just kind of I don't know. I love it. I love the way it's wholly immersive.
Yeah. That's a practice, right? That's a life practice. It's a skill. And how do you bounce back from failed passion projects? Or, because you have to also be really hardcore. What your standards are to put on the plate. How do you say this has to go? Because a lot of chefs have trouble editing as well.
Yeah, I think in the past, I used to let it bother me more and get beat up about things, but I tell myself now, and since post-pandemic, it's just food and, nothing's wrong. Like, tomorrow's a new day. We can start over. It's another chance to, put on a show. I draw a parallel between food and music a lot. And, in our kitchen, we have a bunch of cooks who are similar to a bunch of musicians. So they always have to be firing on all cylinders, and there has to be that camaraderie, and if there isn't, you're not going to put out a good concert or a good service. So if something is not right one day, the next day is an opportunity to rebuild and start fresh, do a new concert, if you will.
I always call it theater.
Yeah, sure.
Because it's so ephemeral. That one night, that one performance, just like you're saying with music, it's the same thing. And the curtain goes up and there's movement. People have to move the right way in the kitchen. I mean, by the way, how many square feet is that building? It's massive.
It's big. I don't know the exact square footage, but it's 3 stories, over 200 seats if you include private dining and bars. So it's a beast of a restaurant.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. That's very different than Two Boroughs Larder.
Yeah. Two Boroughs was, I think, 35 seats, including the bar. And
that was a special place though.
It was great.
Yeah. And that was a special time in Charleston, in a special place. You've been in Atlanta, seeing Atlanta during that special time, what was that? 2009, 2010. That was like sweet time.
Yeah. You've done the research. That's when Empire State South opened up.
Right.
Hugh Atchison's restaurant, and the team that Hugh and Ryan Smith, who's my mentor, built there was the best team I've ever seen in any market. I would put the kitchen that was there up against any kitchen.
Well, so would I, because I've interviewed a lot of you. I'm like, who was in that kitchen? It always goes back there. It was amazing.
It's wild because they were all just such amazing cooks, and everyone has their own spaces now all over the East Coast and even out west. There's maybe 10 or 12 people from that one kitchen that all are head chefs at their own place now, which is a huge testament to what we forged there and to Ryan and Hugh's leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. That heady feeling of going into ESS during that period, I felt that it's an electricity, and you're like, I'm in somewhere special. And then being in Charleston, and then are you feeling that here in Savannah?
I am actually. Savannah is what I would say Charleston was 20, 30 years ago, where it's on the up and up, and there's lots of people migrating here, people who are tired of big city living. There's tons of chefs. We have people from Chicago, Atlanta, Miami, all come into Savannah to do concepts because the market's here, and it's just such an amazing city.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like an ambassador a little bit?
I wouldn't call myself an ambassador. I would just say right place, right time.
Yeah.
And,
you just have been, what I'm trying to say is you've been in the right place, right time a few times.
Sure. Yeah. Maybe just luck, I would say.
Yeah. I don't know about that. It seems to be a little bit more than that. Maybe some talent.
Yeah. Well, we've built a good team. I have an amazing team that have, worked their way up to the ranks, and almost everyone on my line is either currently a sous chef, was a sous chef somewhere else, or is on their way to be a sous chef. And, I've had maybe half a dozen folks who've gone off to do their own restaurants, which is something that I took from Ryan, and I take a lot of pride in trying to grow cooks to where they want to be and what their direction has taken them.
Mm-hmm. But we are seeing the industry majorly shift. What is something you're a lifer? It looks like you've doubled down now. What is something that you would like to see change? Just maybe one thing.
That's tough. Quality of life is obviously a huge thing that isn't widespread in professional cooking. But I think we do a really good job about that within our company and within our shop here. Obviously there's a lot of talk about, unpaid internships, which,
recently with Noma. Yes.
Yep. All those 3 Michelin star places that are working on the free labor and using people as step stools to elevate yourself, which is something I don't do, and I don't, like to support. But I'd like to see, just a more quality of life. In a perfect world, a 4-day work week would be great for cooks, just to have some balance.
This is Saturday. We're sitting inside the Thompson Hotel. I spent time in Husk, but all of this prep that we've been discussing, Southern Fork listeners, that happens around all the time. So it's not a quiet place to sit and have a chat with a tiny microphone on a chopstick. So he popped over here, but I'm taking him away from that moment. A lot of Southern Fork listeners are chefs, line cooks, in the business, but there are a lot more people that haven't worked in a professional kitchen. How many average hours do you work a week right now as executive chef?
Well, it's tough to say. I work every day in some capacity, whether it's with emails, talking to growers or farmers, but I do 5 days in the restaurant, and each day is around 10 to 12 hours. So I would say in the shop, 60 hours, but maybe total with emails and everything else, close to 70, which is average for some folks. All of my sous chefs work 50 hours, and I try to put in a max of 60. But, I've worked in other kitchens where I've done 80 hours, and I know other folks who've done just as many. So it's not a very luxurious lifestyle. It doesn't leave a lot of time for anything, really.
Well, when you're off work, there's two types of people. When you cook a lot in a restaurant, all you want to do is go home and cook and be away. Or other people are so tired of cooking, and they've seen other people be taken care of for 5 days in a row for 12 hours at a time. They just want to go and be taken care of for a minute. Which one are you?
I think I fall into the latter category.
Yeah.
Most of my cooking is at home, is just like quick things, breakfast things, really just something that's grab and go. But on my days off, I really enjoy supporting the community or taking little day trips to the different markets in the Southeast, Charleston or Birmingham, and just seeing other chefs and homies and catching up and getting wined and dined. It's just,
it's a lifestyle.
Yeah, I enjoy it.
Yeah, I love that. Growing up, did your family cook Laotian food?
Actually, not at all. I have no ties to that part of my family.
Wow. Yeah.
So I've recently just kind of gotten back into studying Southeast Asian food just to kind of reconnect with my heritage. But we did lots of Southern food. My grandmother was born in Savannah. She went to Savannah High. My grandfather's from Miami. So everyone in my family is from the Southeast, and we always gathered around and did, big holidays and greasy spoon type food. And, but we never did any sort of, I guess we'd call it, ethnic food or anything like that.
I ask 4 questions at the end, and I think this is a good segue, especially because, I could definitely eat lunch again. And that's pretty amazing. I'm always hungry for the next bite, but what is making you hungry? What are you excited about? I mean, you've really made a name for yourself here and, a very unique identity as a restaurant. So what's next for you? What's percolating?
I guess literally what's making me hungry and right now is, I'm really into seafood and southern oysters, and, this is perfect oyster roast weather, and then crawfish season's around the corner, but I'm also hungry for other concepts and love to do 1-2 other restaurants, and we'll just kind of see where the next couple years take me. But, as far as what like food I'm into, I'm really into Southeast Asian, and Japanese food right now, but, I'm kind of leaning away from meat centric foods and leaning into seafood and more vegetal, just in the way I cook and eat for personal health reasons, but
right.
Just kind of a little cleaner for me.
Right. And it's so beautiful. Those oysters last night from the Crystal Coast, I'd never had those before. Those are awesome.
Yeah. All of our oysters we get are either delivered by hand by the oyster farms themselves, or we get them shipped overnight from the farms. So we're not getting anything from a giant purveyor where they've been in a warehouse for 5 days before coming to us.
Because it's a live product.
Yeah, exactly. All the oysters we get are typically out of the water for less than 2 days. So it extends the shelf life, and we treat them with respect until, they're shucked and served.
Yeah, and that peanut horseradish. I just put a little bit on that plate just to try it by itself. What is one aspect of your job as a chef that meshes like a puzzle piece with an aspect of your personality? So something about the job that's really natural to you.
Well, I think both personally and professionally, I'm highly organized and particular about things, about where things go. Everything has a home. I like to have things in the right spot, have, mise en place ready to go. So just at home, I'm highly organized with where all my books are kept, all my pottery is, and, just it helps free your mind a little bit when you're organized in your life.
I'm coming to learn that, and I did not know that from many, many years. But you're right, yeah. What is one thing keeping you up at night? Just a quick fire.
Oh, keeping me up at night. Literally, last night was my young puppy and The Sopranos. But, there's tons of things that are, disheartening in the world that keep one up, just with just injustices and hatred and, the world slowly dying. But I think literally just my caffeine intake and my puppy are the things that are keeping me up right now.
Yeah, and then you got extra time to think about all that other stuff.
Sure,
right?
yeah.
Because you've got nothing but time.
Yeah, well, right? A lot of chefs don't sleep well anyways because they're reflecting on the day and how they can be better the next day. So it's just a different answer for every day.
All right. This is a question that I make sure and end every episode with, and it is my magic picnic basket question. So years ago, I used to ask like the death row meal question that we sit around like, if you only had one more, oh my God, this would be it before I went to the executioner. And I realized that I don't want to keep asking that because I don't believe in the death penalty. So instead, I want to use this kind of question, to build a magic picnic basket and fill it with some things that bring you life. So within this, I can time travel. I can go back and conscript anybody to make one more bite of something that you just wish you could taste again. I can source for you, but I bet you do a better job than I could. And I can cook a little bit. So I'd love to put some of your favorite things in that basket. They don't have to go together. Some people put all carbs in there. Mine would definitely always have tortilla chips, freshly fried. So what are some things I could put in that basket for you?
That's tough.
I know it changes every day.
Yeah. I guess a dream food scenario for me would be just being with all of like my close friends. It's kind of like you think of the scene in the movie Hook with Robin Williams, where
I've never had anybody reference that movie.
The Lost Boys are all sitting together and have this massive spread of food, and they're just like, being gluttons, and they're just kind of trading insults, and then there's a food fight that ensues. I think that would be like a real special thing for me, just with all the closest friends, just not aging and eating whatever we want and just talking smack to each other in a food fight. But I think that as far as food items that I would put in this hypothetical basket, it's tough. I love all sorts of things. I think a good picnic with like some tinned fish would be great, and some cheeses, but seafood from the Northeast, like Maine, steamers I've really enjoyed, and oysters from Maine. And
that's good. Now, do you have a beverage of choice?
Beverage of choice. Well, right now I'm not really drinking booze during the week, but I think I really enjoy in the summertime a gin and tonic. After service, sometimes I'll like a cold beer and a tequila. But just right now, a little Topo Chico for me.
That sounds good. Well, some Topo Chico, some steamers, some French cheese maybe.
Sure.
And some tinned fish. That sounds like a pretty good picnic. Well, if people want to learn more about Chris Hathcock and Husk Savannah, by the way. I really think you should. You can go to thesouthernfork.com. I'm going to have links there as always, as well as images so you can see the face behind the voice. If you like what you hear, there are more than 315 episodes in the archives. That means there's a lot for you to catch up on, a lot to get you hungry, and a lot of people that you need to get to know in this amazing Southern culinary landscape. I love this job. Yes, I get to eat for a living, but I also get to go behind the scenes in the kitchen and chat with the people, and that's the best part. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're insanely busy, and I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to Talking with My Mouth Full. The larder is really an essential part of what makes Husk Savannah so delicious. And I believe in consumer writing, at least in a lot of the places that I write, I think it's really an underrated discussion because what a chef puts in a larder can really define the personality of a restaurant. And even when you're looking for a great place to dine, if you click on the website and you see a lot of the word housemaid, that's a good sign. It's a promising sign, at least, that the restaurant is trying to do something very specific. They have planning, they have a point of view, and this really even extends to cocktail programs. For those of you that have listened to a lot of episodes of The Southern Fork, you know that I will often interview mixologists who makes their own shrubs or tinctures or cordials or infusions, and that's a great way to really improve your own cooking at home. Just keep in mind, do you know anybody who makes their own hot sauce and then suddenly it seems like every time you eat over at their house, everything they make could just use a dollop of that hot sauce or already has that hot sauce in it. A larder is a great way to add to your kitchen, and it can be really overwhelming. So just start with something small. I like to make pickles, and then I have that leftover brine. I make quick pickles too. They're not really difficult. You keep them in the fridge, and then that brine is left over, and I can use that in salad dressings. I can use that in marinades. I can use that in a lot of different preparations. So that's my kind of larder. I have some other things that I make homemade. Find something that you like to make, whether it's preserved lemons or you ferment garlic or you have a crock of kimchi on the counter. Something like that really can up your game in your home kitchen, and you can, kind of take a nod from all those restaurant chefs that you enjoy visiting. So thanks so much for listening. I hope you stick around for the entirety of season 8. We are going to be going to some seriously delicious destinations, and I'm excited to get you out in the field, behind the bar, and of course, inside the kitchen. Have a great week, and I will be right here next week.
You've been listening to The Southern Fork. I can't wait to bring you more culinary conversations, but in the meantime, I have one question. Are you going to eat all that?